Hello? Hello, 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 hello. It's your boy. And today we are streaming not a video, but live video. Did I say live video? I mean, you know, some perspective, just, you're gonna see some, you know, you know, skeletal perspective here, the way, a skeleton boys see the world, not, you know, I mean, I know I'm a skeleton, but, I, like, I could see my hands and, and all my features and stuff like that, and, and see skeleton man thing, but, another little power that I have, being in this little mind world thingy that I'm in front of, and being all kooky wild hocus pocus crazy boy over here, I can, make it to where my hands aren't skeleton fingers, skeleton boy hands, and kind of like Wabam, and of course Wabam, two hands, two hands, yeah, two hands here, two hands down there. It's almost like, you know, this is like a drawing video or something. It's almost like I'm gonna give you another little peek into the mind of an artist man. Exactly what I plan on doing today. But first, let me adjust things a little bit, There we go. There we go. Give you the illusion that, your skeleton boy is drawn here. Yeah. So, I did a video a little while back. A little, you know, presentation of sorts into the mindscape here. And I did a show off of a comic book that I was working on. Yeah. Just some comic pages that, you know, are kind of, a little important to me a bit. It, it, you know, they kind of, have a story to tell, and, you know, stuff and things and stuff, So, basically, I thought, you know what? Might as well show off some more of my stuff. If some more of the shiz, if you know what I mean. That wasn't an innuendo. Oh gosh, yeah, that was not an innuendo. Oh gosh. But what if it was? Just kidding. No, it's not. I I am Lily A. I'm gonna show you some things and things and shiz, things and stuff, like what you see right here. Well, bam, paper. Just a little bit of, the papery stuff, some already printed out template pages and stuff like that. as you can see through my skelly vision, and the papers aren't exactly affected or anything like that by, the vision that allows me to show you my beautiful, wonderful, not real hand. It's the vision that, turns my skeleton fingers into, meat fingerlings, little sausages. Little sausages. And pretty much, allow you to kind of, you know, see what I see a little bit. See what I see through this, you know, brain feed. If a being like myself can have a brain feed. Don't ask how I got this whole thing set up. Logic and reason don't exactly work in this little space that I'm inhabiting right here. Well, some of it does, clearly, because, things are happening and stuff happens because what's it, who's it, not's it, what's it, how's it. But, some things you just don't want to question. Have a little suspension of disbelief. So, yeah. Of course, for this lovely little hour of not television, and I'm going to play a little bit of Black Sabbath in the background. Well, I got some Black Sabbath. You can't hear it because, of course, don't want to, have the copyright police, come at me, it'd be like, boom, boom, boom. Copyright police, open up! No, well, bam. Control Z. Does copyright, apply within this realm that I'm existing in as of right now? I'm gonna say yes. And, just don't assume. Just, don't assume much further than that. I plan on not to. So, okay. Act as if, I'm on YouTube or I'm on a movie, and do things by the human rule book of, laws and reason and all that stuff as far as this kind of thing goes. So, let us begin. So, we are going to be basically starting from complete scratch. So basically, new page and everything. I think I was, if I remember correctly, in the previous time that I used my skelly vision and showed off these wonderful set of hands that are skeleton fingers, not meat fingerlings, but it looks like it to you guys. Nice. I'm gonna go start from scratch, and of course, I guess for some context, and I got my pages right here. We have basically a character is moving out of his house in which his father is staying at the house, and everyone is kind of at odds. He's been like, honey, can you please, say goodbye to your father? Do you want to? And he's like, nah. And he's like, bruh, and stuff. And then, they zoom away. He's left alone. And of course, with, moving into the place, things are a little awkward. There's, a lot of extra stuff going on that's in the rest of the story. And then, of course, you got your obligatory a serious event happens and the future is uncertain. And basically it's gonna be like a page or two of like like flash forward a bit. It's gonna be kind of, if it were a movie, it'd be like a montage or whatnot. Let's see, where's my pencil? Yeah, so, and kind of where I'm starting with this is gonna be more or less, so I already kind of start the character off a little bit as far as, with a flashback, with the flash forward. So basically, it starts out with character looking at his photo longingly, sighing, then seeing the person that he's missing at the moment, and of course, he's going to her quiz club, of which he is not going to because as he did bad stuff of of sort of understandable bad stuff, but also maybe not quite understandable to some as well. Well, his character's meant to be kind of morally gray as one of the main characters. But yeah, so basically we're gonna see a montage of time passing and stuff like that. So basically, one of the things that I always kind of like to do, as far as with drawing and things like that, or drawing these comic pages, is kind of have a, I guess the best way to describe it would be to basically start with the kind of first panel up here, and then as well as the ending panel of the page, or at least have an idea of where that's going to begin and end. I think it gives a good visible start, finish, and then I gotta get basically creative with how I get to point A to point B. Or I guess in this case it would be what, 9 panels, 8 panels probably. So it'll be, A B C D E F G H. Basically A to H, and show how I get to there. So basically, character is sort of sad. He's looking at him longingly from a distance. So then we're gonna. Now I guess I'll bring the other panel out as well to kind of show that part. So basically, so it's gonna be this panel, but then we're gonna see it from up close. So we're gonna start kind of with, this is the character Sarah. He's the ghost girl that I have shown off in previous in the previous video mind stream or whatever. I guess I'll just call it a mind stream, because that's kind of, you know, a mind stream, because this realm is kind of a, not quite, quite reality, but but it kind of works like that. And I'm showing you this like, it's almost like a video for the peeps, living in wherever land. Let's see. So let's see. Gotta adjust her neck a little bit. So the thing looks right. At least the angle. Perspective can sometimes be a little bit of a difficult thing, which, as any artist would know, that is absolutely the truth. Because perspective can definitely, you can know how to draw a character, or you can know how to draw really, well, anything really, but it's like, but basically, but perspective can shift it up quite a bit too, so you gotta figure out sort of what your characters look like from from multiple angles and stuff like that. You draw them enough times, you kind of figure it out. So basically, we got our first panel here. All right, so first panel, we're beginning with her because we're going to be also shifting perspectives a little bit. Because basically we're going to be going from his perspective to her perspective, and since it's focusing on a couple characters in this space, we're going to be basically shifting from one perspective to another, and it's going to be kind of, and a lot of the perspectives are kind of interlinked in a lot of ways. So you're going to probably see like her character where she's going to begin. So basically we're going to go from focusing on this character to her character, and basically kind of doing it, and it'd be almost like if it were a long shot in a movie or something like that. You'd basically have like the camera tracking with the character, and then basically switch over out of not quite out of nowhere. There'd be an intention to it, but yeah. But basically it would be kind of like that, like switching around. So we got our starting panel, and then I need to figure out what my last panel want to be. This moment that I'm kind of drawing right now is going to have maybe 2 spots, I think, 2 pages that I'm needing to work on. So I guess I'll just kind of, and of course the stuff can change at any point. Some of the stuff will be a little more concrete as I go. Like that first panel, I guarantee I will probably keep that. Heck, honestly, might as well actually just go ahead and shade that and just have it set in stone. Kinda having to adjust some stuff. Let's see. One of the good things as well is when you are drawing characters and or figuring out like perspective, like I was mentioning a second ago. Oh, it's interesting because the more you do that, I mean, perspective's not the only thing that you end up picking up as far as when you're drawing these characters and stuff like that. You end up picking up how to actually draw the character or without thinking really. It's like you end up drawing the character enough times to where when you start drawing, it's just like, well, you're starting and then maybe 5, 10, 20 minutes have gone by, and then, well, bam, you got your character already drawn, and you're just like, whoa. It's like, how did I get this? Like, how did I actually get this drawn this quickly? And a lot of that is just time and practice. Just getting yourself used to drawing something enough times, it's like it ends up becoming second nature. Like this character I probably drawn a billion times at this point. Characters that I've probably drawn the most of this comic is probably this one, the skeleton character, and then the succubus girl, Lilith, which I'm debating on whether or not to draw her during this video. Mind stream. It just depends on what I feel like a lot of times when it comes to like, because sometimes a scene may not even have a character in it, but then I just get a bright idea and I'm just like, oh yeah, what if I did this? That way I could consolidate time and page space and pages in general to be able to actually, you know, get the scene. It's kind of like get my cake and eat it too, in a sense. And there we go. Mark off that panel. There we go. We got a character drawn. There we go. Drawn. Now set in stone. So basically, what I'm wanting to kind of show is a passage of time in a sense. So basically, the character is going to be going to these quiz finals, which you can see the poster for that right there. So basically, she's going to be going to these quiz finals, and of course, the one character, the skeleton guy, was part of those too, but of course, because of drama and things that have happened in the story itself, he ain't gonna be there. So basically, the whole thing will be showing those events, him not being there at the last one, as well as going all the way to graduation and stuff like that, because there needs to be a sort of passage of time shown between this part of the story and the next part of the story, but also just, and I guess also getting the character, their, I guess the skeleton character has to be able to talk to her and try to make things right, but of course giving her her space at the same time, because in relationship dramas and stuff like that, it's always good to give each party their own set of time and space and stuff like that, to work things out and get things through on their own time. And that's kind of what's being portrayed here. So, let's see. Figured out what I want to do on the next panel. I know I gotta get that last panel too, but sometimes it'll come to you as far as making the sort of thing, or come to, well, I guess in my case, come to me. You get your first panel and you get your last panel like right away. But for something like this as well, it can kind of, it's one of those things where it's like you don't want to, you gotta figure it out and get it just right. So basically, I guess the last panel can be, actually, I got the 3 panels, I think, more or less thought out, actually. So basically, just so I have it kind of on my head. In the skull. So basically we have the quiz competition stage. Just kind of have all the characters on the stage. The placement will definitely change. And I've technically already drawn this before in another panel because there's another moment where you kind of see this passage of time, and it kind of, you see it from her perspective a bit more. Of course, we got them holding the check for the finals because it's a scholarship finals. And we'll just kind of do something like that, some people in the background. I have an idea of what I want to do with that panel, but at the same time, it's one of those things where I gotta be able to just have it down. Because that one might take a little bit more detailing, because it is supposed to mimic another panel. Or, well, I guess the other panel was meant to mimic this, but I'm kind of, going at it in a multitude of different ways and all that. So then we got let's see. Of course, when I'm drawing a sort of emotional moment, the Ghana Sunrise by Ozzy and them comes on. I'll need to see where the check is. The drawing that I'm doing here. And of course, we have this panel. So basically, kind of what I got going here is that you got this character noticing they win, and as he's up on the stage, the spot that he's usually in, the skeleton dude, he's basically not there, so she's just noticing that empty space there. It's kind of sad, It's a big emotional moment. That I'm probably spoiling, but, I feel like with with this comic being like it is, it's one of those things where I might even for a comic like this where it's mostly visuals and stuff like that, it is kind of one of those things where I feel like I do need to explain some stuff because it's meant to be drawn read from beginning to end, and there's a lot of important context and things like that that's necessary for everything. So yeah, so we have our final 3 panels there. I might draw that. Well, I say draw. Say I'll draw that. I'll ink that in a sec. And I'll move on to. I'll probably make this one a 4-panel one because there's gonna be some stuff that's kind of moving and all that stuff. So let's see. I'll draw the teacher, who is a Nosferatu. course, that'll be the check. I'll need to adjust the size. Can I forget how small the character is, or at least how much of her body you see behind the check and all that stuff? I'm trying to also figure out if I want to just straight up, if I want to cut the BS a little bit and just kind of cut from this spot to the next. Like, even just kind of omit a lot of stuff. Maybe even do a fun transition where, fun little transition where maybe we see what we think is the back half of that panel, but then it reveals it to be another thing. I might could do that. There we go. Got a little button here. Oops. Lost the view there for a second there. But yeah. So basically, I might just end up skipping that a little bit and maybe just cutting straight to the point. Kind of what I'm doing to kind of prevent myself from having to draw so much is basically there'll be previous pages that have similar events going on, if not identical events and stuff like that. That way, you see familiar imagery like the hand beating down on the button, and then you'll flash back to an earlier part of the story where that same thing's happening, and then you associate that with, okay, that's the quiz competitions. And basically, you can assume, like there's a previous point where you see hand go down, they point, and they say the question or the answer. So in this, we're going to be doing the little that. Yeah, there we go. So basically, I guess one way that I'm kind of doing my comic here is there's not any real dialogue outside of like just things that I can tell visually for the most part. So basically, when a character is, let's say, like there'll be a thought bubble, and this little A with a dot, that's an answer card, and you'll see the actual quiz card at an earlier point in the comic. That way you can associate, okay, Q, A. The cards have Q and A, so whenever they say A, or that you see a picture, little picture of the A, you see, and you'll realize, oh, she's giving the answer. Let's see. This one might actually just be some more mostly real-time events going on. But that one's a more concrete panel, so I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and just draw that. Draw in ink. This is definitely a fun thing to draw. I swear anatomy's like is equal parts fun and also just and not necessarily frustrating to draw, but it is one of those things where you could just as easily get it wrong and make the panel look really weird. Maybe a little hard to see, but these lines are, there's a little bit of space in between them. It's a little harder to see on here, but basically you see a little bit of space there. I got a little more flexibility as far as showing off, as far as proportions go, since it is a more animated style. It's something a little closer to like a Tim Burton style. I think I mentioned before in one of these little mind streams that Tim Burton is kind of is an influence to, a lot of this world is actually kind of the comic is inspired by Tim Burton in a lot of ways. I probably stated it before, but like this comic is basically like Blue Valentine meets Tim Burton. Because like of course you got all the crazy proportions and sometimes kind of angular geometry of the world. Ooh. I knew that lightning strike from anywhere. Playing the first Black Sabbath song off of the self-titled. Probably the most blues heavy and like blues influenced song on the whole first album. Well, the first album's actually pretty bluesy for the most part. Since people have kind of pointed out that there's a lot of that moody, bluesy influence. He's sounding pretty blue about becoming, red. Hellboy reference. Since Hellboy's called Red in the movies. Got our panel there. Trying not to make things look too shaky. Harsh but precise. I gotta be with the eraser. I may not get all the pencil marks out, but at least for this, it looks good. Alright. Yeah, oh, and I gotta put some shine lights. This is on a stage. I might see maybe about putting some curtains. Definitely going off the cuff on some of these. I don't know. Drawing like this just always kind of, I don't know. There's something about it that about going improv on this kind of thing. I think I would be an absolute menace to the world of comics. I don't think any editor or writer would be able to really put up with this kind of thing. Basically having to it's like I can't write a script for this sort of thing because I feel like I have it just doesn't, I don't know. I can't have a concrete image in my head until I actually put it to page. So it's like, as a writer, it's kind of hard to make up my mind with what I want on the page. And trying to describe what's in my head half the time is such a pain. But on the other hand, writers would probably want you to be very specific with what they want you to draw, but of course my brain operates in a way that's definitely would need to go off of my own kind of thing. Nobody's fault on, well, it wouldn't be anybody's fault on that. I think everyone kind of works in their own way, which is why I'm doing my stuff independently. Why I make my stuff independently. At least with like, well, also there's not really a market open for me just yet. I don't really have a lot of an audience. I don't have an audience. At least not right now. I don't know. Maybe I'll have one day. But yeah. Maybe if I had more of an audience and had people beating down my door for me to make them a comic, maybe that would be a little bit of a different story. So there's multiple reasons why I could be independent. But being independent is definitely, I think, more ideal. In this case, just because the way I draw and operate would really drive people nuts. If I gotta be structured and stuff like that, and I mean, I can do it, or at least try to do it. But it's like my brain just goes in so many different directions in this noggin skull that you know, it's something that's very sometimes a very particular mind has to work in a very particular way. That's looking good. Dang, already 45 minutes. I was just gonna do this for like an hour, but time flies whenever you're drawing. Let's see. I'll do this panel next. Another one of those kinds of panels where it's like it's easy to draw because I've drawn this character a billion times. So it's like I don't even have to really think half the time with trying to make sure I keep this in the invisibility. I mean, the whole point of the stream is to show you some drawings. So I gotta make sure I keep it in frame. Let's see. Black Sabbath in a nutshell. Ozzy Osbourne doesn't want to be Hellboy by Mike Mignola. And super bummed about it. I always feel like when it comes to Black Sabbath as a band, their whole concept, while not as like, I wouldn't really say it's like, to me at least, it's not, it's kind of a loose concept in a sense. I guess that's kind of how I think of it. It, like, you got Ozzy being the Prince of Darkness and all that stuff. But I almost kind of figure it and feel like it's almost like, you know, Ozzy's being a devil figure that's, I guess, in Catholic, maybe Catholic, I guess Catholic religion lore is seen as, you know, ruler of hell and, you know, judge, jury, executioner and stuff like that. Which I guess, which is not accurate, but I guess like for the sake of Ozzy and his whole thing, I feel like he's playing in a sense a judge of, I guess, maybe Cold War times or whatnot. I think 70s would have been either Cold War or Vietnam War. I'm not 100% on my politics things without getting into too much politics. I feel like the whole concept of Black Sabbath feels like Ozzy playing a character, judging mankind and stuff like that. And granted, I mean, obviously Ozzy doesn't just, go around dressed as, his character and all that stuff. But, I mean, but, like I said, loose concept. And I guess, singing about weed. Listen to, The Wizard, which I'm pretty sure is about drugs. Don't do them. Do Doom and Bebop. Doom and Bebop will give you some crazy stuff, talking cartoon skeletons, and you know, spasms, skeleton spasms. Pretty wild stuff. That's, the man that, is a skeleton, but it's also, is drawing. It's definitely not my usual thing to do. Usually a quiet individual. A lot of times I don't really there's people I talk to. But I'm not really like a off the cuff talker. It's not usually. Although I do kind of feel like whenever I'm on here, there's a part of me that kind of comes out in a sense. Like when I'm drawing and doing this kind of thing, I feel like I can be a little more talkative and kind of you know speak kind of just all over the place because I mean I'm talking to the void a little bit here. So I can kind of just ramble off, go it any which way in direction. I make this one a little bit that outline a little more defined. Maybe if it were a movie, I wouldn't really need to do that because I think you could more better imply with motion and stuff like that someone's not there. But here I gotta be a little more creative. Alright, let me got our motion shot. So basically here I gotta be able to portray motion. It's one of those things where that I actually feel like I got something like Berserk actually kind of taught me a little more about motion. And of course, you know, Fuji Mormon. I can't even imagine how insane a Mormon Fujimoto would be. If you think the Book of Mormon is crazy, hey, wait until you see Fujimoto's version of it. It'd be like nuts. So basically, something that's interesting about motion that I've found, probably more from actually probably more from um um Fujimoto and kind of studying his artwork is you kind of like want to draw your your character's hands, of course, draw them with pencil and stuff first, and then almost like dotted line them. Now, reason for the dotted lines is because those are like motion lines. So, or where your motion lines would be. So, and of course, make sure I have my ghost character's hands be see-through. But kind of gotta do it in a bit of a creative way. Oh, can't forget a buzz. Because, you know, gotta have that classic game show buzzing sound. That's kind of what I envision this quiz competition being, in a sense, kind of like a school game show in a sense. I guess that's kind of what Quiz Bowl might be like a little bit. And of course, some of this might not be like the most straightest as far as lines and stuff go. But honestly, and I did a short thingy that basically took a snippet from my style study for Fujimoto and kind of my revelation and takeaway from his style study that I did. It's basically don't worry too much about the details and lines and stuff like that. Because there's plenty of artists that if you look up really closely, you will definitely see stuff that's not perfect. Heck, even Mira has of Berserk fame. Even he had, I guess, like if you looked really closely, not all of his lines were always just um they weren't always the most straight and stuff like that. But then again, it's like dude filled his stuff with so much detail that it's actually kind of insane. There we go. There we go. We got our motion. And since it's like a some table lines, so you can tell that it's a table. The table knows that it's a table. It doesn't need Lou Reed to say, "I am the table." By Metallica. I'm popping off all the references here. All the random janky references. Janky. But yeah, so looking down at button, press this button, answers question. And of course ends with her seeing Sir not there, sign, and then quiz finals are over. Let's see. Trying to think of what to do next. I might just do that panel actually, but I might need to actually find my find that page. Because that page is fairly detailed, so it's one of those things where I feel like to get it properly, I gotta pull out the page itself out of my giant, massive, cartoonishly huge comic. Like this thing's like massive. Like, think of like 2 normal sized binders. That way I got it on hand. Yeah, so that page right there, well, that panel. I gotta have that on hand, that way. Saying that there's a bitrate thing, but nah, not too worried. Alright, let's get this one panel going. So I will probably just erase this piece right here, because I need to draw something very specific there. Actually, I won't draw the whole of the quiz team for that one. I think you just need to be able to see the check. So you can see that they got grant money. Let's see. Nope, I could do more mind streams like this. I think I'll just call them mind streams. Nice to have a theme. This might end up looking a little more like what I do as far as, you know, showing everyone how I do things. Have this little nice little backgrounds. Actually, I might turn this panel into them getting the check. Since these other panels don't have her holding it, but then that one does. I don't want to create no continuity errors. Let's see, that's... Let's see. There's enough stuff you can see as far as to tell that this is a finals. And of course the giant finals thing doesn't hurt. There we go. It's a little closer to what I need it to look like. Trying to figure out if I want to do a full panel on here or not. I could save that for another day. I don't know. Surprisingly, things have gone actually pretty smooth. Hip stress. And since they're a little further, the characters are further away or smaller in the panel, you can kind of get away with being a little bit more sketchy. Or at least more openly sketchy. I don't know if that's something that most artists tell you about. They probably do. Maybe, and I'm maybe just making an assumption. I don't feel like they do. In all honesty, I don't know. But I'll tell you here. Papa Skeleton Boy. Your reliable narrator. Actually, I'll use that whole Sharpie. I'll use the whole Sharpie. I had a bigger Sharpie somewhere, but I don't feel like trying to go and get that. And kind of stop stream. Because at worst, I want to maybe see if I can get this done in, 2 hours. Ooh, this is gonna be tough. Drawing the ghost girl is a little tough from far away. Because he's so tiny in the page. And I mean, and granted, I'd probably alleviate this by using some better markers. But where's the challenge? There we go. After I'm done here, I might actually play some video games. Ended up actually picking up a copy of Tony Hawk's 3+4 and played the ever-loving crud out of the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4 part of things. Wasn't a huge fan of what they did with taking out some of the campaign elements. Well, I guess the colorful characters and stuff like that. But when I did play of it played pretty well. If you played the 1+2, it basically just plays like that. Which I got a little bit of a soft spot for the Tony Hawk franchise, It was one of my favorite sports games growing up. And that's saying something because I don't play sports games. I tried, but they're not my thing. But that game series always kind of was. And I think it's just those arcadey elements and stuff like that that always was a lot of fun. I don't know. It's like that game was definitely a huge part of my childhood and development into an artist. I'd argue that subconsciously, I feel like a lot of the punky stuff ended up making its way into my art, kind of that grunge appearance and all that. Oop. But yeah, like a lot of that stuff, I feel like has found its way into my art in one way or another. I don't know. There's just something cool about that kind of aesthetic that just I don't know. There's something about it that's always spoke to me. I don't know. Maybe it's the skulls. Maybe it's the grimy cityscapes and things like that you skate around in and all that. I don't know. There's something about the underground that just kind of is kind of neat. Especially the Tony Hawk's underground. Which is also a very good game. I'm curious to see how they plan on remaking that. Since it is kind of a definitely a one of those games that might be kind of tough to remake, at least at the way that they've been doing these recent remake games, since they're all kind of modeled in a sense after kind of what Tony Hawk 1 and 2 sorta did. With the whole score based system and I mean you had stuff like that in Pro Skater 4, but if and on, but I feel like it's like with those games it's like they had like you go around to the different characters, you talk to them and all that stuff, and you get your wild crazy banter going on and your just general Tony Hawk early 2000s game insanity going. And it's just like, you know, that's kind of a big part of the later games and stuff like that. So it'd be kind of hard to completely be rid of that. I mean, they kind of got away with it a bit with Pro Skater 4. I wasn't really happy about that part of it whenever it came out, but I feel like, or at least whenever, well, I say when it came out, when it was announced that, but it's something that I feel like I've been able to kind of surprisingly get over it a little bit. I mean, heck, for what, $50? I'll support that. I'll support $50 games if it means saying something to the AAA developers and being like, hey, make more $50 games. I might buy more games day one or day two. I don't think I technically. I'd have to see when the game actually came out. I feel like it came out. When did it come out? I feel like it was like last week, I think, or this week. I forget. Maybe get my dates instead mixed around. But yeah, let's see. Where do I want to go with this? I'm trying to think of what to put there. course, we got our judge here. Thinking of a fun design to put there. Sometimes I kind of forget that I'm doing a comic about a world that's all human and monster and stuff like that. So sometimes I kind of forget to actually make characters that are actually um, creatures and stuff like that. I still need to do that. I think for this one, I might actually just might make this guy a ghost, kind of like the Sarah character. There we go. Give give him that nice little face. Give him a oop, that that correct wasn't drawn right. When in doubt, make a correction. Do it in black ink. Let's turn that white check mark into black. Insert woke or anti-woke joke. I won't make either one right now. Which means the neutral party. Let's say yeah, if I make a joke, it's probably gonna be or anything politicsy. Expect a joke that either spent expect the most fence-sittery joke you can think of. Cause I know both ends of the spectrum might watch something that I make. I don't know. And I want to try to make this a fun time for all. I feel like there's not enough just stuff out there that, you know, just says, hey, we'll we'll all in a tizzy. Let's just have some fun and not think about it too much. Lovely, lovely escapist entertainment because it brings everyone together. Also, if you're wondering, these little lines coming from the lights, but I always like doing a little thing of you know making things diegetic and non-diegetic. I think diegetic I think is insane and the non-diegetic I think is outside the scene. Let me check that actually. Let's see. Diegetic. Sound in a movie, television occurring within context the story. So yes, I'm taking them I'm taking them lovely speech bubbles and making them diegetic. Because why not? We'll treat them diegetically. Not necessarily that all the characters are seeing said object, but there's sometimes a little bit of fun to be had with making stuff like that react to the world around it. And figure out what to do with that panel. I gotta make it make sense with what I want to do. This is one of those tough spots. It's like what do I put there? It's like I have an idea, but at the same time I don't have an idea. Sucks whenever you get into those kind of dilemmas, because it's just like you're trying to figure out. It's like I got to get a detail like the check in there, or at least where you can see it better. But at the same time, I guess I can sort of do a kind of like a version of that. Let's see. Maybe do a maybe do the giant big check. being handed over. That's the. She's about a little over shoulder height. So let's see. I might not even have the hands be there. I might just make them. Let's see. Trying to think of a. Guess she would have maybe a. Draw a little on the other side to kind of get an idea of anatomy. There we go. Always another good thing to do as well. Get. Depending on your style, you can be a bit laissez-faire with with things like you can be a little laissez-faire with your with your stuff. So long as you can, if you're a little laissez-faire be a little laissez-faire with your lines a bit. If you, depending on your art style, of course. And of course, this is anyone who watches this is, you know, be a little hush hush on the fact that I, you know, kind of messed up that hand and turned it into a wolf hand. I don't know. I really don't. I actually, honestly, I really don't care that much. Honestly, I'm joking on that. But I'm just gonna call that skillful hiding. Find ways with the lighting to hide the fact that you are drawing something wrong. Work your mistakes into the art. That's what I try to do with a lot of mistakes. I just try to work them in and act as if they were completely, absolutely planned because they were. Wink. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. They were completely in 100% intentional choices. The artist cheat. Just say, oh, I meant for it to be like that. Of course I'm playing. And if you want another trick, Nick, if you want to fill space and you don't want to leave a bunch of random nothing in there, have silhouetted heads in the foreground. Adds to the perspective element. And you can make your stuff look a little better. Or use it to cover up mistakes. Done that too. Let's see. Do a little bit of grade A lazy there. I don't know. I might go in there and maybe maybe later on I'll go in and maybe actually add an amount into there, but right now I don't think it really matters. Because really the dollar amount isn't quite the focus of the scene in all reality. Let's see. And of course, gotta draw the female form for a second there because, you know, it's kinda important whenever you're drawing characters. You know, anatomy and all that. Anatomy. Show me anime. Could just add anime. There we go. Get that out of the way before the Rule 34s muck it all up. Also, that's a joke. So. If you do that kind of art, not my thing. But hey, that's your prerogative, so not my call. Of course, fun little tie trick. Don't color in the whole tie. Just do little lines. And it ends up kind of mimicking the creases. Get that all. Get that in there. Maybe I'll finish before the 2 hour mark. It'd be my longest stream so far. I shall finish this page for the art. Get some shadows back there. Another thing that I'm doing is, well, I'm in retrospective feeling it might not make the most sense putting shadows behind a little bit of shadow in her legs. But one thing that I am doing to kind of keep the behind shadows from blending her into the back is going one direction with the shadows, but then with her going the other. That way it stands out. And there we go. We got that panel done. One more. And this one's the easy one. Or easier one. since I've by by this point made this character a wolf man. I shall now make his head match the body. Need to give his arm a little more natural. Give it a little more natural looking bend. And I can be a little, another one of those things of I can be a little less like precise and or that could be a little more messy since the panel's a little bit smaller. Get that old wolf man with his goofy grin, goofy tooth grin going in there. And that long neck. Let's see. Although most times I'm not, I'll still try to get those details in there. Even if I don't necessarily need certain details in there, a lot of times I'll still do it. There's furries in this universe. Oh no. The floodgates have opened. Now there's people that dress as wolves gonna like my comic. Which is completely fine. If you like my comic, that's really cool. Even though, again, a really janky tail. Let's see. Add some of them details in there. Add them details in there. Other Another little trick. Same with the tie, with how I did the tie. You can do these little shine spots, and it makes it look like shiny pants, or dressy pants. Got our vampire teacher man on the scene. It's the fiddles. Must fix janky looking stuff with more lines. Television pop. Because when my speakers turn on, they kind of come on for random reasons. I don't know. Do you ever get that? Where you have your television hooked up through, I think it's hooked up through an auxiliary cord or something like that. And then when the television just randomly kind of decides to kind of pop on, or at least have electricity run through it, it triggers the speakers too. I don't really know why Quiet does that. Just kind of a thing. There we go. Get our little sweet little Sarah in there. Okay, we may be finishing at the 2-hour mark. I swear, I feel like anything I make, this could be like a clip farmer's dream, because it's like long stream, him basically just saying random crap off the cup. Random spasms. Spasms, as I say. Oh. And, since, I can, say I am done with the page here. Ba-bam, ba-bam. Now, the obligatory skeleспasm. The scasm. Victory scasm! Wait, hold Wonderful little victory scasm. Alright, we are done with this one page. And I think that's where I'm gonna take my leave. I'll make another one of these pages another time. And I may even share a little more of this art again. I really enjoy doing this, honestly. But yeah, so to kind of go through the visual language of it, we have our faux next angle from the other page, but of course it's actually at the game show trivia thing. Buzz. She says the answer. You said it's correct. And then scholarship. They're handing it over. He doesn't see her boy. And he's like, sigh. But still victory. So yeah, using a little bit of that visual language. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, thank you anyone who decided to pop by. If you didn't and you're just watching this in the future, here, hello. Oh, hope you stop by for some more stuff. Uh, Gonna keep things optimistic around here. Yes. Keeping them whoop. That was not a very pessimistic response. Definitely not a pessimistic response there. Thank you, computer. Brain, mind, whatever. The mind is a computer. Whoa. Sci-fi stuff. I'm not an idea. I'm a shopping list. And a ghost. But yeah. Alright. Well, hope you guys enjoyed this little session of ours. Doing some drawing and stuff like that. I hope to do some more in the future. Some more fun art and arts and draw arts and all that wonderful, wonderful shiznaz. All that rad stuff. And as always, is you know, outro, ponder on time and space, time and ramble. Always remember, the door is always open, as the doom room be.